What's up, dude? Welcome back to Quick Thoughts. Today I have been given amazing news. One of my favorite games just released a statement saying that it reached 1 million copies sold, and that game is 13 Sentinels Aegis Rim. Now, I was super excited for this game ever since it was first announced in 2015. That was a crazy time. I have always been a fan of Vanillaware, but up to that point, I don't think I ever actually played their games before. I really just admired them for their art styles and pretty creative design. I mean, some of them are just 2D hack and slashers, but the first game they ever made, Grim Grimoire, was like a 2D tower defense real-time strategy game. And you can see a little bit of that influence in 13 Sentinels as well. 13 Sentinels was pitched as a mech game with 13 separate protagonists with intertwining stories and a crazy, just actually insane looking grid-based, well, not grid-based at all, real-time strategy RPG. And it's a little bit turn-based as well, because when you pick your moves, time stops, so it's not real-time all the time. There's also a tower defense mechanic, and oh my god, the combat in that game. So the story is like, I can't talk about it that much without spoiling, so I can't go into specifics, but I can talk about overarching things. But the game itself is very interesting. So the game is split up into 3 sections. There's the story section, the action section, and then there's like the lore section, which is just a compendium of every single term that you learn throughout the game. And it just like is a complete wiki page. It has all the lore. It has everything you could ever need to know. And it's super useful when shit gets really fucking complicated, which happens quite a lot. And the gameplay takes a tower defense approach, like I said. So there's this part in the middle. You have to pick your team out of the 13 protagonists. I don't know how big the teams are. They're like 6 people per team. And each character can be put on the field 2 times in a row before they need to rest up. And it's a pretty classic setup of mechs versus kaiju. Now, there will be tons of enemies on the screen at once, and you'll be really relying on AoE attacks. Your attacks have like area of effect indicators as you make them. I always liken this back to Hyperdimension Neptunia, because that was just the first game I ever saw that had that kind of attack radius indicators. But I don't know what game was actually the first to do something like that. It's a very minimalist look, but this game must not be optimized, because every time there's like a big attack, there's so much fucking lag and the screen shakes, but it really adds to this feeling of like these kaiju are just like coming onto Earth and you're just defending yourself at all costs, and it's just like this power struggle. And every single attack is just like the fucking fate of the world, dude. And you just feel the weight behind all of it. It feels really good. I don't think there's minimal character interaction and like story content in the actual gameplay. It does exist, and for certain maps, it's very important, especially near the end. But usually there's not that much. There's no like support system like Fire Emblem or anything. I know that, I mean, some people will probably question that because there's so many characters, so kind of expect that with like a strategy game at this point. But there's really nothing like that, because the story is the biggest part of this game. Like, this game is like 40 hours long, and most of that is story. It's almost a visual novel, pretty much like an adventure style game, where like it takes place in 2D plane. You run around, you inspect things, you talk to a lot of people. Every time you get like a new term, it appears in your thought bubble, and you can think about the term and just like try to figure it out, and then you can use it on certain things like an item to puzzle some stuff out. And it's a really interesting setup. The way it works is you'll play as a certain character for a certain amount of time, and then you'll be locked out for story reasons. You'll have to pick up another character and play them to a certain point. And a lot of the time you have free reign of who you play when. The game doesn't really hold your hand too much with that, and surprisingly, somehow the story works. There's so much going on. There's an insane amount of things going on. I took fucking actual hard copy notes on this stuff. I still have a notebook that has like a few pages just full of 13 Sentinels notes just to keep up with everything. But it might not be the most concise, but it certainly all comes together in the end. And there's not too much contradictory things, especially in terms of like events. Usually, when you think of a game having multiple protagonists, you think that, oh, there might be a section where both characters kind of do the same thing and it's not really mentioned. I always think back to Sonic Adventure with that, because in Sonic Adventure, you would have like two characters doing the same exact fight with completely different dialogue, and it's like the same point in the story. So it's like, what the fuck really happened? It's a completely different perspective here. But with 13 Sentinels never really got into that territory and the contents of the story, man. Like, I don't want to spoil anything, but there is so much here. It's like really iterating on like the sci-fi genre in general, and it makes reference to so many other like classic works, and it has like elements and ideas from tons of games, stuff that reminded me of things like Steins Gate and Metal Gear, and like even a little bit of Evangelion, and just like a bunch of influences that you can very clearly see. I mean, obviously there's the War of the Worlds influence, which is very big, and they reference it. They reference, there's clearly a lot of reverie for the sci-fi genre in general. They reference tons of things about it, because when you start, you're just like a normal kid in the 80s. I thought that was really cool that it starts in the 80s, and you're like searching for like videotapes and stuff. You're like trying to find old ass or like indie or like B sci-fi movies and stuff. Like the main character starts out as a sci-fi movie nerd, which is really fun. But oh my god, there's so much in this plot. I think it's not a spoiler to say that there is time travel and there are multiple timeline versions of certain characters, and the things they do and the places they go with those concepts are so cool. It just like it delves into so many unique ideas that I've never really seen to this like extent of sophistication before. And it really takes advantage of its setting, of its medium, of its character archetypes, because like I'm not gonna say that the reveals or like the changes that these characters go through are like the most mind-blowing shit or the most subversive shit in like media in general. Like this isn't I mean, you're not gonna take a character archetype and completely change them, but granted, I think that that kind of praise given towards one series is a little short-sighted, because usually stuff like that, subverting character tropes and stuff, is usually a long-term cultural change in writing of separate times. So if like you look at something from the 60s and then you look at how that same kind of trope was interpreted in the 90s and going forward, if you look at it on a wider scale, I think you're not just going to be seeing, you know, Asuka from Evangelion. You're going to be seeing a lot of different characters that were kind of doing the same thing around the same time. But man, the directions they went with these characters and the plays they did on their character archetypes was super interesting. And there's really so much that I can't go into because I don't want to spoil anything. Because really, this is one game that, like, you know, sometimes you get asked the question of, like, what piece of media would you go back and experience for the first time? And this is definitely up there for me, because just discovering the mystery was a game in itself. Like, that's what I love about mystery stories in general, because that's, like, the top of the bill. Like, before this is a sci-fi game, this is a mystery game. And just figuring out the mystery yourself, really playing detective, as the characters are as well, is the most fun part of any mystery story. Even if you're just like, because I like to let stories kind of wash over me, and I like to just like take in what they're saying. Because I mean, sure, there's tons of mystery stories where I wasn't really on the ball with it, and I was just kind of following along. But I mean, I was straight up taking notes with this. So like when you're following along and you're like, okay, this should happen. Okay, this could lead to this. There's some connections here, and then you can learn more about it. And you're like, oh, okay, I see where these things don't connect. Oh, there's so many cool things in this game, and I would just highly recommend it to any like fan of visual novels especially, but even strategy, of course, strategy games and RPGs. I would consider it a JRPG, even though it has leanings into other genres. But I mean, a lot of JRPGs have leanings into other genres, and some of the biggest PC only JRPGs. I mean, well, usually those get 18 plus, but they'll have all ages versions usually. But those get into a lot of visual novel stuff while also having JRPG elements and all of that. But I think that's all I have to say now, because there's quite a lot to talk about with this game, but there's so much that I would have to separate it into different videos. Like, I don't know if I can make a protagonist video about this game, because I feel like I would have to make 13 videos about every single character, or just like videos about certain moments or sections in the story. It's just that big, and it's just that special of a game. I did, however, make a old video on it, on Protagonist, long before the new style of my current videos really took shape, because my YouTube journey has taken a while. But that video was rambly like this, but it was full of spoilers, and it was really inaccessible to anyone who wanted to learn about the game but didn't want to be spoiled about it. It was really just me being excited because I just finished it. So I ended up taking that video down because one, it wasn't suitable for my current content. You know, it's just not the same thing. But also, it just kind of crossed the line in that way. So that's a little bit of the reason I wanted to do this video. But I also just wanted to talk about how awesome this game is, because it just hit 1 million copies, and now it's on sale on the Nintendo Switch. I don't know about the PS4 version, but it's on sale on the Nintendo Switch right now. So you can fucking buy it. It's like 14, 16 bucks USD. It's absolutely worth it. Also, thank you to everyone who watched that old video. It got about 1,000 views before it was taken down. So thank you so much, because I mean, that means the world to me, really. I don't care like what videos get views. If you're watching my stuff, that's great. And speaking of watching my stuff, if you like this video, you can leave a comment, leave a like, and leave a subscribe for this channel and the main channel, Protagonist. Because remember, this channel has more subscribers than the main one, and it is no way my main focus, but I do very much enjoy making these videos for this channel. So, whatever you feel, have a good day, please subscribe, whatever else. I just found a game on Backlogged called Fire Emblem Gilmore Girls, and that sounds like peak. Anyways, have a great day. I've been Protagonist too. Make sure to subscribe to the original Protagonist channel. Peace.